So for years, I had really, really strong stage fright, and it was really, it was quite paralyzing for me. It just, the thought of getting in front of people, I would just completely freeze up. And I think one thing that's different now is I just don't think about it as much. Believe it or not, when I get in front of people, I get in front, I jump. But in any case, there was one thing that was interesting that I noticed over the years, which was if I had a presentation to give, I would or if I was going to perform music, I would be really terrified. I would freeze up. But if I was in a class and there was a group conversation, I felt like I always had something to say and something to contribute, and I would always be raising my hand. In fact, I would say too much. Like I just and I wasn't thinking about what was there. It was almost like as soon as something occurred to me to say, my hand would go up, and I wanted to throw out an answer. I had a teacher in my Japanese class who she called me a Daruma, which was it's actually a type of Buddha, but it's in Western culture, it's like what we call a weeble, that you knock it over and it comes back up. And she said I was like a weeble because she said no matter how many times I answered incorrectly, my hand would go up again and I would try again and again and again. So I thought it was really funny that these two sides of myself. One side I would just be terrified to get in front of a group, and another side that it was almost like I couldn't wait to say something if I felt like I had something to say. And I think that's one of the differences that I noticed is I had something in mind that I wanted to say, and that's fine. What I've noticed over the years, though, about stage fright and my experience of stage fright, and I believe many people's experience of it, is that we're holding some standard in our mind about how we have to show up, whether it's in a talk or in a meeting, and because we're imagining not hitting that standard, it brings up this nervousness or reluctance to speak up, or we're wondering how we're going to come across. And I think one of the solutions to this is to really practice being in different contexts with no agenda and with a willingness to see what comes up spontaneously. And when I teach public speaking, one of the things that we do is we'll take turns just being in front of the group, and either I'll throw out a word or somebody else will throw out a word, and we're invited to just use that word as a kicking off point to something that we're going to talk about. And so it might be carpet, and we can talk about the rich carpet and where the carpet came from, and just sort of riffing on that word and turning that into a story and letting it expand. And what people realize relatively quickly is that they could pick any topic and find something to say and begin to weave it into a line of a talk. But for me, the big takeaway here is giving yourself opportunities where you can be spontaneous and where your life doesn't depend on it. I think people get caught up in a state of mind that I call the state of mind Carnegie Hall, which is we're imagining being at the big performance at Carnegie Hall with absolutely no preparation, and everything is on the line. Our future is on the line, our public reputation. We're going to get cast out of society for all time. If we hit one wrong note or say one wrong word, instead of being in a situation where we're able to just speak and let whatever come out. If you think about, if you're just having dinner with some friends, for the most part, you don't rehearse what you're going to say. You speak when you feel like speaking. You also don't speak when you don't feel like speaking. there's a great book if you're interested in public speaking, or if you have stage fright. There's a book called Be Heard Now, which is, it's different than there's a famous book called Be Here Now, but this one's called Be Heard Now. I'm forgetting the author's name, but I'll put it in the notes. And in this particular methodology, the first thing they have you do is just stand in front of a group and breathe, and give yourself permission to breathe. And the only requirement, I think there are two requirements. One is that you breathe, and the other requirement is that you make eye contact with one person at a time, no matter how many people you're in front of. And so you could be in front of 1,000 people, and they encourage you to just make eye contact and speak to one person at a time. And for me, when I learned this, it was a real opening into me feeling comfortable in front of people. So that was a place where I could be there as myself and just show up spontaneously and practice being spontaneous, and practice being okay with whatever came up. And if you are somebody who's interested in public speaking, or any environment where you feel that you're kind of on display, I would encourage you to find as many places to practice being spontaneous as you can, because what eventually starts to emerge, or at least what did for me, is you start to gain confidence in your ability to come up with whatever needs to come up spontaneously. That's one thing that we talk about in trance work, or also in meditation. It's the realm where you don't have to plan, right? Where you can trust that whatever needs to come up will come up. You can always return to your breath. You can always return to your body. You can always return to the moment, and essentially practice being spontaneous, which is, it's kind of funny that you don't really need to practice it, but I think people don't give themselves the opportunity to be unprepared and to just let happen whatever is going to happen. It could be just taking the opportunity when somebody, a place that I used to get really nervous is if somebody asked me to give a toast. And I'm not saying you don't prepare something when you give a toast, but if somebody asks you to speak at a meeting, sometimes it's okay to just speak. And I would encourage you to take chances where the stakes seem very low, so that you get acclimated to it, and you start to gain some confidence that the things that will come out will be okay. They don't have to be perfect. And also that you won't make mistakes that you can't recover from. And I think that's the big fear, is that we'll say something that's very wrong, and that we can't recover from it. Whereas in fact, what's really empowering is to say something that isn't perfect and still recover from it. And I think when you get to that point, then you start to feel some real confidence, and you start to settle down in your body. I remember a time seeing a comedian, and somebody heckled the comedian, and I thought, oh no, this is going to be horrible. The poor comedian, what's he going to do? And the comedian got really excited, because this is when it became spontaneous, and he got excited, and he had somebody to interact with. And what I realized is, oh, he's practiced being spontaneous. He's practiced handling questions and handling criticism. And there was virtually nothing that somebody could throw at him that he wasn't amused by, or that he didn't have some way of responding to. So I encourage you to practice being spontaneous and enjoy it, even if there's some jitters there. Jitters are okay. Jitters are part of the process.